Family is supposed to protect you. But that night, mine stood still and watched me burn. Why don't you just disappear? My sister screamed, shaking with rage. She stood in the center of our living room, hair wild, mascara streaking, fury aimed straight at me like I was the match that ruined her perfect life. And my parents? They didn't stop her. My father crossed his arms. My mother didn't blink when she said, "You're a curse to this family. Get out and never come back." And just like that, I became invisible. No one asked for my side. No one asked how I felt. No one asked why my sister's engagement collapsed, or why her employer flagged her for misconduct, or why I happened to be in the room when it all came crashing down.
No.
They chose their narrative, the one where I ruin things. The one where I exist only to absorb blame and stay quiet while doing it. So I didn't argue. I didn't cry, or scream, or beg. I walked upstairs, packed a small bag, and walked out the door. Quietly. That's how it always was in this house. Screaming wins. Silence disappears. As I stepped outside, the winter air hit me like a slap. My hands were trembling, but my mind was finally still. I didn't have a plan. Just a vow. Never again. Never again would I live in a place where my presence was treated like a problem. Never again would I shrink so others could shine. Never again would I carry guilt for being less convenient than their golden child. I found a friend who let me sleep on her couch. Got a job at a local print shop. Worked nights building freelance design projects from my old laptop. I ate quietly. I earned quietly. And I built something in the dark, slowly, but fiercely. Because when your own family casts you out, you learn fast how to become your own rescue. That was 2.5 years ago. And this morning, everything changed. I woke up in my apartment, the one I bought in cash last fall, to 14 missed calls from numbers I knew by heart, but hadn't dialed in years.
Mom.
Dad. Even my sister. Text after text poured in. "Layla, please call. It's serious. We need to talk." Something's happened. I didn't panic. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen counter and scrolled through the messages like I was reading a book I'd already memorized. Because I knew what happened. The news broke last night. My name. My face. My story. The outcast daughter who created a multi-million-dollar design software and sold her stake for a staggering 7 figures. Headline. From couch to CEO, how one disowned daughter changed everything. They didn't know what I had been building. They didn't know the curse they cast out had quietly become their only hope.
And now?
They were calling. Desperate. Suddenly remembering I existed. My name is Layla. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because the night they told me to disappear, they gave me my freedom. And now that I've made something of it, they want it back. But I'm not the quiet girl they left behind. Not anymore. You don't become invisible all at once. It starts slow, with your name being the one they forget to mention, your birthday being the one they remember late, your voice being the one they talk over. That was my childhood. My sister, Alyssa, was the light, the performer, the achiever, the daughter with sparkle and tantrums and attention. I was the afterthought. I learned early how to make myself useful instead of loved. I cleaned without being asked, ate quickly and quietly, got straight A's and didn't dare celebrate too loudly. When Alyssa got into cheerleading, she had custom uniforms and 2 private coaches.
When I got into computer science,
my father laughed and said, "That's not a career, that's a phase." My mother told relatives I was just trying to find myself. When Alyssa's boyfriend broke up with her in high school, the whole house dimmed in mourning. She stayed home for a week. Got flowers, ice cream, therapy. When I failed my first math final from exhaustion and cried in my room, my mom opened the door just to say, "You're not falling apart over a test, are you? Be strong." That phrase, be strong. I started to hate it, because in my house, be strong meant suffer quietly so your sister doesn't have to feel uncomfortable. They poured into Alyssa, and I poured into silence. The gap grew with us. She got her first car at 17. I took the bus to work. She was late for every family dinner, and they waited. I came early, and they forgot I was there. But it wasn't just favoritism. It was deletion. They acted like Alyssa was the whole painting, and I was just the blank space around her. And the irony? I never envied her spotlight. I just wanted my own little lamp in the corner. Something soft, steady, enough. I thought, maybe if I became impressive enough, quietly successful, responsibly good, I'd get something. A nod. A touch of pride. A "we're proud of you." So I overachieved. Graduated early.
Started working in design.
Picked up coding skills online. Taught myself UI/UX while everyone else was out drinking. And still, nothing. I became the family tech fix girl. Layla, can you help Dad with his email? Layla, can you fix the Wi-Fi? Layla, make yourself useful. You're good with that nerd stuff. That was the extent of it. So when the house exploded with drama last year, when Alyssa's engagement fell apart, when screenshots of her bad behavior leaked, when her employer placed her on probation, I was in the room. And even though I had nothing to do with it, she pointed at me. You're jealous of me. You always were. Admit it. You ruin everything. And the rest? Well, you already know. My parents didn't defend me. They agreed. I didn't scream. I just stood there, absorbing the same silence I'd always been given, but this time, I walked out with it. And when that door closed behind me, so did my loyalty, because I finally understood. It was never my job to fix what they broke. It was my job to save myself from the wreckage. And I did. They thought I'd come crawling back. That I'd be gone for a few weeks, maybe a couple of months, then return, humbled and desperate, begging for shelter or forgiveness or crumbs of validation. But they never stopped to ask what I could do if I had even an ounce of peace. The first week was the hardest. I stayed on my friend Tasha's couch. She didn't ask questions, just gave me a pillow and a key. I'd sit up at night in the dark, laptop balanced on my knees, fingers aching as I tapped through mock-up screens, coding blocks, and rejected freelance gigs. I was building something, but I didn't know what it was yet. All I knew was that if I couldn't make a life for myself now, I never would. I kept my day job at the print shop. Minimum wage. Dusty.
Quiet.
But it paid just enough for instant noodles and cold coffee. Nights? That's when the real work happened. I sold logo packs on design forums. Built websites for small Etsy businesses. Offered free UI audits just to get portfolio pieces. And then one night at 3:12 a.m., something clicked. It was a layout I had mocked up 100 times. But this time, I didn't make it for a client. I made it for myself. A wireframe for a digital platform, something simple, clean, intuitive, that would let users customize interfaces without needing to code. A UI skin tool for small creators. One-click designs. Seamless branding. Drag-and-drop functions. I called it Glowform, short for Make Your Presence Shine. I launched the beta in a Discord group of indie creators. 20 users signed up in the first week. Then 50. Then 200. One girl posted a TikTok tutorial using it. Overnight, the site crashed from the traffic spike. That was the first time I cried, not from sadness. From hope. I fixed the backend, rebuilt the server, added new features. By month 4, I had 12,000 users. By the end of the year, a venture firm emailed me. They wanted a meeting. 2 months later, they invested $350,000. 6 months after that, I was sitting in a glass-paneled office with my own team, my own logo on the wall, and my own paycheck bigger than anything I'd imagined growing up in that silence. The girl who left home with a single backpack was now the CEO of her own future. And while they were busy pretending I didn't exist, I was building something they couldn't ignore. I never posted about it. Never gloated. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about resurrection. One day, I got a message from my old high school teacher, the only person who ever believed in me back then. Just saw your interview on Founders Weekly. I always knew you'd build something. That was the day I stopped looking over my shoulder. Because I didn't need them to see me. I needed me to see me.
And now?
I saw a woman who made it. Not despite being discarded, but because she finally stopped waiting to be chosen. It wasn't supposed to go viral. That was never the plan. I built Glowform to help creators, not to be seen by millions, not to become a brand, not to end up on news feeds. But then the article dropped. The tech star you've never heard of, from disowned to disruptor. A journalist found my old Medium blog, the one I wrote anonymously back when I was still couch surfing and figuring out life. She reached out, curious about the woman behind the software quietly changing the face of UI design. I said yes to the interview, hesitantly. I didn't expect it to spread. But within days it did. Tech forums, business pages, even local news stations picked it up. Abandoned by her family at 24, Layla Monroe built a company now valued at over $12 million. Her family told her to disappear. Now, they can't scroll without seeing her face. I didn't name them. Didn't need to. The silence I left behind was doing all the work. By the time my face was trending on LinkedIn, they had to notice. And they did. I knew because the text started trickling in. At first, just from old classmates. OMG, is this you? Didn't your sister used to call you a ghost? LOL. Who's haunting who now? Then came the less amusing ones, anonymous numbers. Voicemails I didn't play. Calls I didn't answer. And then I saw it. My mother shared the article. She posted it on Facebook with a caption. So proud of my daughter. She's worked so hard. A true inspiration. My daughter. The same woman who called me a curse. Who told me to get out and never come back. Now pretending she raised me with love and Wi-Fi. Comments flooded in.
Wow.
She's yours? She's incredible. You must be such a proud mom. Where has she been hiding all these years? Hiding? I wasn't hiding. I was healing, building, becoming. And while she bathed in borrowed pride, the walls of their world started cracking. Because that same week, Alyssa lost her job. A whistleblower exposed misconduct. Screenshots leaked. The same fiery meltdown energy she used on me, she'd turned on a coworker, publicly. The video hit Twitter like a grenade. People weren't sympathetic. They started digging. Her old Golden Girl image collapsed in days. Brands unfollowed her. Sponsorships dropped. Her side hustle tanked. And while her fall spiraled, my platform soared. One of the investors who turned her down in college just emailed me to ask if I'd consider joining their board. I didn't accept, but I sent a note back. Thank you for recognizing something they never did. The silence that followed? Sweeter than any check. Because now the world saw me. Not the version they'd tried to hide, but the one I grew into when they let me go. And that fire they tried to put out? It was lighting up everything. Their lies. Their hypocrisy. And most of all, their need. Because now, they needed me. But I didn't need them. Not anymore. The phone lit up again. 14 missed calls. 1 from my father. 3 from my mother. 10 from Alyssa. I stared at the screen like it belonged to someone else. Like this life, this moment, wasn't mine. But it was. And I wasn't surprised. Because once Alyssa's scandal broke, and the world stopped seeing her as perfect, the panic began. And where do narcissists run when their masks slip? To the one they buried. I made a cup of coffee. Let it steep slowly. Watched the screen keep buzzing. Then the text came. Layla, please. Call us. You don't understand how bad it's gotten. We're family. Can we talk? Your sister is in trouble. She's sorry. We all are. That last line? It almost made me laugh. Now they're sorry. Now that the Golden Girl's image shattered. Now that the daughter they exiled is the only one whose name means anything. Now that I was worth something. But when I was sleeping on Tasha's couch, when I was burning out on freelance gigs and living on canned soup, they didn't care. They didn't call. They didn't even wonder. They told me to disappear, and I did. But now that I've reappeared on screens they can't stop watching, suddenly I'm valuable. I finally opened one of the voicemails. Just one. My mother's voice, brittle, trying too hard to sound soft. Layla, sweetheart. We made mistakes. I see that now. We just want to talk. Please don't shut us out forever. You're still our daughter. Still. As if the word daughter means anything after what they did. I didn't respond, but I thought about all the years I begged for that voice to say something kind, something human. And now that it had, it was just too late. The next day, a package arrived at my office. No return address. Inside, a necklace. My grandmother's. She always said I'd inherit it one day. It skipped my mom, and she promised it would be mine. But when I left, they gave it to Alyssa. Now, they wanted to offer it back like a peace treaty. I held it up to the light. Beautiful, but not priceless. Just like me, they only remembered it when it could fix something broken. I put it back in the box, wrote a note, sent it to their address via courier. The note said, I don't need anything from you. You made your choice. Now live in it. No signature. They didn't need one. That night, I finally texted Alyssa. Just one line. You told me to disappear. You didn't say how far. She read it, didn't reply. And I knew, in that moment, she felt it, the weight of all the years she stood behind my mother while I was being erased. She wanted to scream at me now, beg, but I'd already vanished from her reach. Because forgiveness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just freedom, paid in silence. I knew they'd come. It was only a matter of time. People like them don't handle being ignored well, especially not by the one they cast out. Especially not now that the world sees me. So when my assistant buzzed the intercom that morning, her voice uncertain, I already knew. Layla, there's a woman downstairs. She says she's your mother. Your father's with her. And your sister too. I didn't answer right away. I just stood at the window of my office, 30 floors above them, and looked down at the three figures huddled outside the glass doors of a building they never dreamed I'd walk into, let alone own. My mother looked like she hadn't slept. My father was pacing. Alyssa wore sunglasses, like shame could be hidden behind designer frames. I took a sip of coffee, and I felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, just distance. I picked up the phone and said to my assistant, have security keep them in the lobby. Don't let them upstairs. I'll send someone down. I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out an envelope I had prepared weeks ago. I knew this day would come. I just didn't know how calm I'd be when it did. I handed the envelope to my assistant. Give them this. Nothing else. And then ask security to walk them out. She nodded. 10 minutes later, I got the call. They left. Quietly. Your sister cried. I hung up and sat down, letting the weight of it settle. Not guilt, clarity. Because inside that envelope was a photo. A photo of me for years ago, curled up in the back seat of my car, using my coat as a blanket. Hair messy, eyes tired, laptop on my lap. The caption scrawled on the back in my handwriting. This is what you made. This is what you left behind. That was it. No reply needed. No scene made. Just the truth. And they could do with it what they wanted. Later that day, Alyssa posted something on her story, just a black screen with the words, sometimes the people you need most become strangers. Sometimes it's your own fault. Progress? Maybe. But it didn't change anything. Because they didn't show up because they loved me. They showed up because they finally realized I had become someone they couldn't control, someone with power. But I didn't need their tears now. I needed them to live with the echo of the silence they handed me first. And maybe, just maybe, the image of their daughter, sleeping in a car while they ate dinner and laughed upstairs, would stick with them longer than their empty apologies ever could. I stood at my office window one more time. Below, the city moved on. So did I. Because you can beg for forgiveness. You can knock on every door you once slammed shut. But eventually, the locks change. And the person on the other side doesn't need to open it anymore. They called me a curse. They blamed me for everything, from broken engagements to their own bitterness. They threw that word around like it was a permanent stain, like I'd be branded by it forever. But the funny thing about curses? They only work if you believe in them. And I stopped believing the moment I built my first prototype. Now, that curse is a crown. After the article went viral, the calls didn't stop from universities, women's groups, young developers, single moms, first-gen students, girls who had been pushed out of their homes and told to figure it out.
They all saw themselves in me.
Not the polished version with clean lines and a media feature, but the girl who slept in her car. The one who disappeared so she could finally become whole. So I launched something new. Not a tech product. A foundation. Glow Forward. A startup fund, mentorship network, and safe housing initiative for young women who were cut off, cast out, or labeled a burden by their own families. We help them land on their feet, not just with lectures and checklists, but with real tools. Housing grants, laptop donations, therapy stipends, coding boot camp sponsorships. We built a network of shelters that partner with co-working spaces. A place to sleep, a place to build, a place to rise. And it's working. I watched one girl go from sleeping at a bus station to speaking on stage at a tech conference in under a year. Another coded her first mobile game and sold it. Another started a podcast. Cursed and Crowned. I cried when I heard the title, because it's not just my story anymore. It's ours. One night, I gave a TED Talk. Small venue, intimate crowd. I told the full story from the night I walked out to the moment my name landed on Forbes' top 30 founders to watch. I ended with this. They said I was a curse, but really I was just the mirror. And when they couldn't handle their own reflection, they tried to shatter me. The room went silent. Then it rose to its feet. Afterward, a woman came up to me, probably in her 50s, tears in her eyes. I was the Layla of my family, she said. But I never left. Thank you for showing me it's not too late to choose peace. I hugged her, because I knew that ache. The ache of waiting for love from people who only hand you blame. But not anymore. I don't chase peace. I build it. And for the first time in my life, I belong somewhere. Not because they made space for me, but because I carved it out myself. With grace. With grit. With silence sharper than any scream I ever swallowed. 3 months ago, I bought a house. Not for me. I already had my own. This one was different. Brick, 2-story, old porch. Familiar. It was the house I grew up in. The one I was thrown out of. The one they called ours when I was paying half the bills and still eating shame at the table. After my parents fell behind on the mortgage, after their financial support systems dried up with my silence, the property went into pre-foreclosure. I bought it anonymously, through a shell company, paid in full. No signatures needed, but mine. They moved out last week. Alyssa posted about it. Sometimes life falls apart, but we rebuild. Still no mention of me. That's fine, because what they don't know is what the house is now. I remodeled it. Not with marble counters or fancy floors. I turned it into a transitional home for girls who had nowhere to go. 6 bedrooms. A shared workspace in the garage. A garden where the shame used to sit. We renamed it the second door. Because sometimes you have to close the first one, hard, before you ever find your place. Each room has a journal on the nightstand. The first page in every single one reads, "You are not their burden. You are not their failure. You are not their shame. You are the story they were too small to contain." This week, I visited to check on renovations. The paint was still drying in the hallway. A girl, maybe 17, peeked out of her room with a shy smile. She was holding the journal. She said, "Is this your story?" I nodded. She asked, "Do you ever miss them?" I paused. Not because I didn't know, but because I finally did. "I miss the idea of them," I said, "but not the people they really were." She smiled, like she understood too well. I left the house that day with sunlight on my face and nothing in my chest but peace. Because they thought I was a curse. But I was never their shame. I was their mirror. And when they saw their own cruelty reflected back, they couldn't stand it, so they smashed it. But here's the thing about breaking a mirror. It doesn't stop the reflection. It just sharpens it. And now, that reflection is everywhere. In the girls finding shelter. In the women building tech empires from living rooms. In the whispers of daughters who stopped begging to be chosen and chose themselves instead. I don't talk about them anymore. Not out of pain. Out of peace. Because I used to think I needed closure. What I really needed was distance. And I got it. Not by disappearing. By becoming undeniable. They called me a curse. But I was the truth they couldn't bury.
And now?
I walk freely through the door they told me to never come back through. Not to prove anything. Just to make room for the next girl who needs a place to rise.
The moment he pointed at me, the room went quiet. The food's not for you. Just drink water. It was my father's 57th birthday. White tablecloths, imported wine, a giant cake with gold candles, 30 guests in polished outfits, laughing, drinking, eating. And me, standing near the back, holding a gift bag no one noticed, in a dress I'd second-guessed 3 times before walking out the door. I hadn't been invited. I found out through my uncle's Facebook post. But I showed up anyway because he's my father. I thought maybe it was just an oversight. Maybe I'd still be welcome. Instead, I got pointed at like a stranger interrupting a private dinner. I looked at my brother. He smirked into his champagne. My mother didn't even meet my eyes. A few people shifted awkwardly, like they could feel something cruel, but didn't want to be the one to call it out. So I smiled. Tight. Polite. Hollow. Then I walked to the table where I'd set my purse, pulled out my phone, and opened my travel app. The surprise I had planned: 3 non-refundable first-class tickets to Paris. 1 for my dad, 1 for my mom, 1 for my brother. I had been saving for a year. Flights, boutique hotel, Michelin-starred dinner, Eiffel Tower reservation. Everything. I canceled them all in under a minute. $18,750. Gone. Then I picked up my coat, left the gift bag on the floor, and walked out without a sound. No one followed me. No one called. And in that moment, on the steps outside that too-perfect rented venue, surrounded by music and muffled laughter, I finally understood. They didn't forget me. They left me out on purpose. My name is Lena Farrow. And from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me. Because the day they told me to just drink water was the last time they ever got to sit at a table I built. You don't become the uninvited daughter overnight. It starts slowly in the small things. Like when my brother got a brand new car for graduating community college, and I got a generic card for finishing my MBA. Or when they forgot to tell me about family dinners. But somehow I was always the one expected to remember birthdays, send flowers, cover emergencies. I used to call it forgetfulness. Then I called it favoritism. Now I call it what it really is, a hierarchy. And I was never at the top. Growing up, my brother Jason could do no wrong. When he flunked out of his first college, my parents said he's finding himself. When I got straight, as they said, don't get cocky. I was the serious one, the quiet one, the overachiever. I didn't ask for much, and they took that as an invitation to give me even less. At every holiday, Jason's name was first on the gift tags. Every conversation circled back to his problems, his girlfriends, his plans. If I spoke up, I was interrupting. If I stayed quiet, I was moody. Still, I kept trying. I showed up to birthdays with thoughtful gifts, even when I wasn't thanked. I helped plan my parents' anniversary trip last year. Paid for half of it too, even though Jason didn't contribute a cent. I called to check on my mom when she was sick, sent groceries when Dad threw out his back, offered to help Jason with his business pitch. All of it ignored, dismissed. But this trip to Paris? That was going to be my gesture, a peace offering, a way to say, despite everything, I still care. 3 tickets, first class, a hotel in Le Marais. I even booked a walking tour of the Louvre because my dad once said he'd like to see it before he dies. And still, I wasn't invited to his birthday. Not even a text. Just a table full of people and my father pointing at me like I was someone else's problem. The food's not for you. Just drink water. That wasn't a joke. That was the truth, finally said out loud. I wasn't one of them. Not really. Just the second-class daughter. The standby option. The one you remember when something needs fixing, never when something needs celebrating. So when I canceled those Paris tickets, I wasn't being petty. I was just done paying to be forgotten. The strangest part? No one noticed me leave. You'd think someone would have called out, followed me to the door, asked what I was doing, but I slipped out as easily as I had been ignored the entire evening. By the time I stepped into my car, the laughter inside had already resumed. I sat behind the wheel, breathing through a stillness that didn't feel like sadness. Not anymore. It felt like clarity. I opened the travel app again, just to double check. 3 round-trip, first-class flights to Paris. A 5-night stay at Hotel Le Pavillon de la Reine. Dinner reservations. Private Louvre tour. Eiffel Tower dinner cruise. The works. All scheduled for the next month as a surprise. It had taken me 12 months of careful saving. I took on freelance work. Skipped my own birthday plans. Chose this trip over replacing my aging laptop. Because I thought maybe if I did something big enough, beautiful enough, it would finally mean something to them. But there I was, sitting in the dark, hands cold on the screen, looking at reservations they never even knew they had, and canceling them all with 3 taps. Cancel trip? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. This action cannot be undone. Confirm. Done. I stared at the screen for a while after. $18,750. Non-refundable. Gone. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I didn't feel the panic I thought I would. What I felt was free. For the first time, I wasn't working to earn their attention. I wasn't buying my way into affection that should have been mine all along. I wasn't trying to prove that I was good enough. I was just done. I deleted the trip from my calendar. Then I pulled out of the parking lot and drove to a small Thai place I liked. I ordered takeout, took it home, and ate it barefoot on my balcony with a blanket around my shoulders. No birthday music. No forced laughter. No cold glances. Just me and the city lights. I didn't tell anyone what I'd done. Not yet. I didn't need to. Because silence, I've learned, is a language all its own. And in my family, silence only becomes loud when it comes from me. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from my mom. Her tone was breezy. Hope you got home okay, sweetie. Sorry if Dad went a little overboard. You know how he gets with his jokes. Jokes. That's what they'd call it. A man publicly humiliating his daughter while passing a platter of roasted duck. I didn't call back. I just listened once, then deleted the message. No confrontation. No long-winded explanation. Let them wonder why the Paris trip never appeared. Why the itinerary I hinted at weeks earlier vanished without a word. Let them ask each other in confusion, frustration, maybe even guilt. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't giving answers to people who'd never earned the right to ask. It took 2 days for the confusion to start leaking through. First, my brother posted a cryptic status. Funny how people show their true colors when it matters. No tags, no details, but I knew it was about me. Then came the group text, the one I hadn't left yet. My mother sent a photo of my dad in a robe, sipping coffee with a forced grin. Birthday boy still glowing. The message felt like a cover-up, like they were trying to prove to someone, maybe themselves, that nothing was wrong. But something was. I could feel it. And by the 3rd day, the cracks showed. Jason texted me directly. Hey, weird question. Did you book something for Dad? He keeps checking his email like he's waiting for tickets or something. I stared at the screen for a moment, then locked my phone and didn't reply. That was the beauty of this entire moment. They had no idea what they'd lost. Not fully. They only had pieces. Hints. Gut feelings. That quiet panic when something you've come to expect suddenly doesn't show up. The Paris trip wasn't just a vacation. It was a power shift. It was the moment I realized I didn't have to scream to be heard. I just had to stop giving. And silence is a powerful teacher. My father finally called me himself 5 days after the party. Voicemail. Lena, if there was something you were planning and it fell through, that's okay. But next time, just tell us. We can help cover the costs. Cover the costs? He really thought this was about money. As if I'd canceled a gift because I couldn't afford it. As if this was a mistake I needed help fixing. As if he hadn't stood in front of a full room and told me I wasn't welcome at his table. I didn't call back. They tried once more. This time, an email from my mother. Long wordy, rambling about misunderstandings and family tension, and how everyone says things they don't mean. She ended it with, It would be a shame to let one moment erase all the good we've shared. Let's move forward together. Together. That word used to mean something to me. Now it sounded like a leash. They weren't reaching out to repair anything. They were reaching out to reclaim control, to rewrite the story before anyone outside the family could see the truth. But I didn't reply to that either. Instead, I got coffee with a friend, laughed through an entire brunch, and scheduled a solo trip to Lisbon just because I could. Because I wasn't the girl waiting to be noticed anymore. I was the woman who walked out, quietly, deliberately, and let the silence tell the story for me. After the email, I blocked them. Not out of anger, out of necessity. Because I knew how this would go. They'd call it a misunderstanding. They'd downplay it, twist the story. They always did. And if I left even the smallest door open, they'd wedge themselves back in with guilt and expectations. So I closed the door, locked it, walked away. That was the last time I heard from them for nearly a year. And in that silence, everything changed. My business took off. The brand I built quietly on weekends and lunch breaks finally exploded. One of my social media campaigns went viral. I got featured in a business podcast, then a lifestyle magazine, then another. Clients came pouring in. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. I moved into a new apartment, bright, full of windows and air and freedom. I hung plants. I hosted dinners. I invited people who didn't make me shrink. And not once, not for a second, did I miss the people who made me feel like furniture in my own family. Meanwhile, word started getting back to me. Not directly, just in snippets, the way news travels when people want you to know something without saying it. Jason's startup failed. Investors pulled out. He had to move back in with my parents. My dad's business took a hit. A bad contract, some unexpected taxes. I never got the full story, but I heard enough to know things weren't smooth. My mom? Apparently she started attending church more often. Looking for peace, someone said. It was almost poetic. The people who told me I was too cold, too distant, too hard, suddenly facing the chill of a room without me in it. And I didn't gloat. I didn't laugh or post cryptic messages or throw their silence back at them. I just kept living. Because I wasn't punishing them. I was protecting myself. There's a difference. People think going no contact is cruel. But what's cruel is spending your life begging people to treat you like you matter and calling that family. What's cruel is showing up year after year with gifts and effort and grace and being met with empty chairs and full plates you're told not to touch. I didn't walk away to hurt them. I walked away because they were hurting me quietly, constantly, and pretending it was love. And once I gave myself space, I saw it clearly. They needed me, not because they loved me, but because I held the emotional structure together. I planned the calls, sent the cards, bought the gifts, bridged the gaps between arguments. I was the glue, but glue gets tired too. And when it stops holding everything together, things start to fall apart. That year, the quiet one, was the year I finally became whole. Not because they changed, but because I stopped waiting for them to. It came out of nowhere. A single text. No context. No preface. Just, "We've been thinking about you. Can we talk?" It was from my mother. 11 months and 2 weeks after that birthday. I stared at the screen for a full minute. She had always been the diplomat, the smoother over. She never raised her voice. She just raised her eyebrow. Disapproval in her world wasn't loud. It was subtle, icy. Growing up, she rarely said, "I love you." She said, "Be careful." She rarely said, "I'm proud of you." She said, "Don't overdo it." And now here she was, asking to reconnect like I hadn't spent most of my life auditioning for her affection. I didn't respond. A day later, Jason texted me too. "Hey, I know things got weird. I think we all miss you. Also, could use some advice on something." There it was, wrapped in sentiment, coded in half apology, the ask. Not surprising. My success had become hard to ignore. My face had been in a magazine recently. My brand was now collaborating with a global campaign. I had even spoken at a small business summit, a video of which had made its rounds on LinkedIn. Jason was probably drowning in pride-swallowing regret. And my father? No message from him directly, but I noticed a follow request from a new account. One of those obvious fake profiles that parents use when they think they're being subtle. I didn't accept, because I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. Their silence hadn't changed me. My own had. In that year, I'd unlearned the way I'd been to be palatable. I stopped asking what I could do better. I stopped rearranging myself to fit a table that was never built for me in the first place. I started saying no. No to emotional labor disguised as obligation. No to guilt parading as love. No to being the family's backup plan, crisis manager, and uncredited cheerleader. I poured into friendships that gave back. I worked with clients who respected my time. I said yes to joy, rest, laughter that didn't come with consequences. That growth was quiet, but it was loud inside me. So when they reached out hoping for a reunion, what they didn't realize was this. There was no one left to bring back. I hadn't just moved on. I had evolved. And the version of me that once would have cried at those messages, typed 3 drafts of a reply, asked friends what I should say, she was gone, replaced by someone who didn't flinch at silence, who didn't mistake a text for a lifeline. Still, I waited a few days before I responded. I let the calm settle in, let the old ache rise, then pass. And when I finally opened the message thread again, I typed 3 words. Sorry, wrong number. And sent it. No emoji. No follow-up. No explanation. I deleted the thread, blocked the number, and went on with my day. Not triumphant. Not bitter. Just full. Because healing isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a quiet certainty that you'll never again let someone pull you back into the version of yourself you had to break to survive. I didn't expect a reaction. Sorry, wrong number. 3 words, sent without fanfare. I didn't need a mic drop. I didn't want applause. I wanted peace, and that's exactly what I gave myself. Still, the fallout came. Mia, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in months, messaged me the next day. Did you really say that to your mom? I didn't answer, but I knew what that meant. The story was circling. Not the real one, of course. Not the version where I was humiliated in front of 30 people. Not the version where I quietly canceled a luxury trip because I realized I was just a placeholder daughter. No, I'm sure their version sounded softer. Blurred. Convenient. She's been distant. She misunderstood. She's cold. I've heard it all before. But this time, something was different. They couldn't control the narrative, because I didn't come running back. I didn't fight for my place. I didn't defend myself or explain or offer them a script to revise. I gave them nothing. And in the vacuum of that nothing, they were left with the truth. They had lost me. Not temporarily. Not emotionally. Fully. Jason tried one more time. Through a different number. We're family. You don't just throw that away. I read it while sipping tea in a bookstore cafe, sun hitting my face, laughter bubbling from a table nearby. A friend across from me slid a new book into my hand. You'll love this one, she said. And I realized in that exact moment how much I didn't miss them. The way they made me question myself. The constant feeling of being not quite enough. The way my wins were brushed aside and my help taken for granted. Family doesn't mean proximity. It means protection. It means celebration and correction, not humiliation and expectation. I didn't throw them away. They let me rot on the shelf for years and only noticed when they wanted the benefits again. They didn't miss me. They missed what I used to do for them. And once I stopped doing those things, they called it distance. I call it healing. So I didn't reply to Jason either. Instead, I turned off my phone. I finished my tea. And I let myself sink into the safety of my own boundaries. Walls I had spent years learning to build. Not to keep love out, but to keep myself in. Later that evening, I journaled the moment down. Closure is not a conversation. Sometimes it's a door you close gently and walk away from without waiting for a knock. That text, sorry, wrong number, wasn't just a clapback. It was a declaration that I was no longer available for guilt, no longer reachable by manipulation, no longer interested in proving my worth to people who only saw it when it was convenient. In the weeks that followed, I didn't hear from them again. No more texts, no more emails, just quiet, but not like the quiet I used to dread. This silence was sacred. Mine. I filled it with music, with dinners that ended in laughter instead of tension, with clients who sent thank you notes and friends who hugged with both arms. I filled it with freedom, because when I said sorry, wrong number, what I really meant was, you're not calling who you think I am. That girl, the one who kept trying, doesn't live here anymore. A year to the day after my father told me to just drink water, I hosted a dinner party. Not out of spite, not as a performance, but as a celebration of peace, of growth, of my own damn table. It was small, 8 people tops, my closest friends, a few colleagues who had become chosen family. No formal invites, just real connection. Warmth that didn't need RSVP cards to feel official. I cooked everything myself. Roasted chicken, lemon potatoes, a simple pasta with garlic and oil. I opened a wine I'd been saving, lit the candles I used to say were just for guests, and played a playlist of quiet soul music that made the space feel alive. Everyone brought something, a pie, fresh bread, wildflowers in a jar. But no one brought expectations. No one asked for anything but presence. When we sat down, I noticed something I hadn't expected. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't trying to keep anyone happy. I wasn't scanning faces for disapproval. I wasn't hoping to be enough. I just was. Halfway through dinner, my friend Kara raised her glass. "To Lena," she said, smiling across the table. For building the kind of life most people are too scared to even imagine. And for making space at her table, not just with chairs, but with heart. Everyone clinked glasses. Someone joked about how my roasted potatoes could start a religion. Laughter spilled into the corners of the room. And I realized this was the dinner I had always wanted. Not the Paris trip. Not the big gestures or expensive gifts. Just to sit at a table where I wasn't starving for acceptance. To feed and be fed emotionally, spiritually wholly. After everyone left, I stood in the quiet for a while, barefoot, glass in hand. I thought about the last year. The silence. The rebuilding, the hard, invisible work of unlearning the idea that love had to be earned with sacrifice. I thought about my parents, about Jason, and for once it didn't sting. It didn't even register as loss, because what I thought I was missing was something I never had in the first place. A seat doesn't mean belonging. Blood doesn't mean home. Sometimes you have to leave the room entirely to understand you were never supposed to shrink to fit inside it. I looked down at the table. Empty plates, crumbs, lipstick on glasses, and smiled. I used to beg for a place at theirs. Now, I set my own, and no one here would ever be told to just drink water. They'd be offered seconds, and laughter, and a safe place to speak freely, because that's what I built. That's who I became. In the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about remembering who I was before they taught me to question it. I didn't need their table. I needed to know I was always worthy of my own. And I built one with love, resilience, and boundaries that don't bend just because someone shows up late with an apology. I blew out the candles, washed the last glass, and went to bed knowing something I wished I'd learned years earlier. I wasn't too much. I wasn't hard to love. I was just in the wrong room.